Elira, a beautiful princess from a foreign land, sent by her father to be a spy in an African village that had enough gold and other precious minerals, pretended to be a homeless beggar, but she eventually became the queen in that African village. How she did it will leave you speechless. Sit relaxed as the story begins. But first, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss out on other interesting stories from us. We appreciate your comments, so let us know what you think about this story and what you learned. No one knew when she arrived. No one saw her pass the rusted welcome arch at the village entrance. But there she was, seated on the dusty path that led to the village square, barefoot, skin pale and cracked from sun exposure, dressed in rags that barely clung to her slender body. The village of Katanga had never seen a white beggar, let alone a woman with such otherworldly features and an aura of mystery that could silence even the most talkative market women. Her long blonde hair, matted and tangled, spilled around her shoulders like an abandoned crown. She was 28 years old, though her weariness made her look older. Children were the first to spot her. Curious little feet skipped toward her, laughter dying into hushed whispers as they got closer. They stared at her with wide, frightened eyes, their hands clinging to each other. They'd seen white people before, missionaries, traders, tourists, but none who sat like this, begging for scraps, her eyes sunken but hauntingly beautiful, with a look that held 1,000 unspoken stories. Old women muttered to themselves, some crossing their arms over sagging bosoms as if to shield their hearts. "What kind of spirit is this?" asked Mama Ejima, the oldest woman in the village. "A white spirit on the red soil of Katanga? Tufiakwa." She spat on the ground 3 times to ward off evil. Men, both young and old, gathered in small groups, arguing and speculating. "She must have escaped from somewhere," one man suggested. "Maybe she's mad. Look at her clothes. I heard she was thrown off a moving jeep in the dead of night." "Rubbish. Maybe she's running from her people. Look at those eyes, there's pain in them." Within hours, the news had traveled across the land like wildfire. Every palm wine joint, every cooking circle, every shrine and every farm had only one topic: the white woman who begged in Katanga. The story eventually reached the ears of King Obinna, the ruling monarch of Katanga. A proud man with a sharp mind and a reputation for fairness, King Obinna was intrigued. He summoned his trusted guards, Okoro, Ajani, and Ibuka, and ordered them to bring the strange woman to the palace. When the guards approached her, she did not resist. She simply stood, her tall figure swaying like a leaf in the wind, and followed them in silence. The villagers parted like water as she passed through, eyes wide, mouths agape. Some whispered prayers, others curses. At the palace, she stood before the king with quiet dignity. She did not bow, yet she was not disrespectful. The king stared at her for a long moment, then spoke. "What is your name, woman?" She lifted her eyes to his, blue meeting brown. "My name is Elira," she said softly. "And where do you come from, Elira?" "I don't know," she replied, voice barely above a whisper. "I remember little. I woke up in a strange land, and walked, until I found this place." A lie wrapped in the cloth of truth. Elira, princess of Arvenia, a distant European kingdom hidden beyond icy mountains and thick forests, had been trained since childhood for this mission. Her father, King Aldrich of Arvenia, had sent her not just because she was his most brilliant child, but because she could disappear. Unlike soldiers, spies didn't carry swords. They carried silence. The villagers didn't know that. The king didn't know that. To them, she was a lost soul, perhaps cursed, perhaps blessed. And in time, Elira proved herself valuable. She fixed the irrigation system in the farmlands after watching the farmers struggle. She suggested rotating crop seasons, a foreign idea that doubled their harvest. She helped the healer, Mama Ojeki, reduce the infant mortality rate with simple hygiene practices. She taught the children to read and write using charcoal and banana leaves. The people of Katanga began to revere her. Some called her Nwa Muo, child of the spirits. Others called her Oyabo Madu, the white human. But most called her simply Elira. King Obinna watched her closely. Her intelligence was too sharp, her answers too rehearsed. But he could not deny her value. Even his sons, especially Prince Jidenna, his second son, watched her with interest. Jidenna, a tall, handsome man with a fierce gaze and a softer heart, had once led soldiers in the border wars. Now, he found himself drawn to Elira, often asking her questions, bringing her books from the palace archives, laughing at her dry wit. Elira, too, found herself softening in his presence. 2 years passed. Elira became part of the village. She spoke their language fluently, danced at their festivals, cooked their food, and learned their secrets. In her hidden diary, she sketched the map of the sacred groves, marked the stones that led to the underground caverns where the villagers hid their ancestral treasure, gold, rare stones, ancient scrolls. She had been sending messages through a concealed device hidden in her walking stick, signals that only Arvinia's agents could decode. Her people were preparing to invade, to take what they believed belonged to the world, not to a forgotten African village. But something had changed. Elira had fallen in love. Not just with Prince Jidenna, but with Katanga itself. With the land. With the people. With the smell of roasted plantains in the evening, the laughter of children by the riverside, the drums that echoed like heartbeat at night. She felt more human here than she ever had in the cold marble halls of her father's palace. So when the invasion finally came, Elira stood on the palace balcony with her eyes blazing like fire. "I will not let this happen," she declared, standing beside Prince Jidenna, who had learned the truth about her days earlier. What happened next was not war. It was diplomacy forged by love and courage. Elira stood as the bridge between the two worlds. She spoke to her father, convincing him that a peaceful alliance would bring more wealth than stolen treasure. King Aldrich, seeing the fierce love in his daughter's eyes, agreed. The two kingdoms signed the Pact of Peace beneath the sacred Irako tree. Business relations flourished. Knowledge was exchanged. Gold became legal tender in Arvinia and Katanga's name spread across continents. Elira married Prince Jidenna in a ceremony that lit the heavens. She wore white, but her heart beat in rhythm with Katanga's drums. And so, the white beggar became a queen, not just of one kingdom, but of two. Not just by blood, but by choice. And Katanga, once a quiet village, became the richest and most powerful African community the world had ever seen. The months after the royal wedding brought a time of profound transformation. Elira no longer walked barefoot through the village, but she still visited the same corners where she once sat in rags. Children who had once stared at her in awe now rushed into her arms without fear. Women brought her palm oil, shea butter, beads, and wrappers as gifts. Old men greeted her with respect, calling her Ada Katangar, daughter of Katangar. Prince Jidenna, now her husband, had become more than a warrior. With Elira by his side, he took up the mantle of leadership with wisdom that surprised even the king. Elira did not just sit quietly as a queen. She proposed systems, trade networks with neighboring villages, vocational training for women, literacy programs for orphans. The palace turned into a hub of learning and negotiation. Foreign visitors from Arvinia, escorted by Katangar's warriors, marveled at the rich culture and vibrant markets. The fusion of two civilizations had begun. But even with peace came shadows. Some members of the village council still distrusted Elira. Chief Obilu, the oldest among the king's advisors, was vocal in his doubts. "She came here in rags. he would mutter during council meetings, his voice a low growl. She was not born here. She was sent here. How do we know she will not betray us again? King Obinna, though fond of Elira, kept his own counsel. He watched. He waited. He tested her in small, deliberate ways. But Elira, who had been trained to lie and mislead, now only spoke truth. Her love for Jidenna had unwrapped her deception like old bark peeled away from a tree, exposing a rawness even she had never known. One day, a crisis arrived that would either seal her fate or destroy everything she had built. A long-hidden tribe from the southern hills, the Uroki, attacked a border village allied to Katanga. Their warriors were fierce, driven by revenge for an old conflict lost to history. The council clamored for war. Prince Jidenna began to assemble the army. But Elira stood in the middle of the courtyard, dressed not in royal silk, but in her old peasant rags, her hair tied back in a simple braid. "Let me go to them," she said. "No," Jidenna objected immediately. "You are not a shield." "I was once a weapon," she replied. "Now let me be a bridge." Against the advice of his generals, the king agreed. Elira set off with only 2 guards and a translator. For days, nothing was heard from them. Then, a messenger arrived. Elira had returned not only with peace, but with a signed treaty and 5 Uroki chiefs who wished to speak directly to the king. It was a turning point. Chief Obilu, after decades of suspicion and skepticism, finally stood in the great hall and bowed before Elira. "I was wrong," he said. "You were sent here to take from us, but you gave us everything instead." Years passed. King Obinna grew older and named Jidenna and Elira as his successors. The coronation was held under the sky, in the presence of both kingdoms. Elira, now known across lands as the Bridge Queen, wore a crown woven with both golden vines from Arvenia and cowries from Katanga. The fusion of cultures was not just symbolic. It was real. It was living. Her father, King Aldrich of Arvenia, wept during her coronation, not from sadness, but pride. He had sent his daughter to claim a treasure. She returned with a nation's heart. Elira ruled not with dominance, but with love, with wit, with fire. She was fluent in diplomacy and dance, in strategy and soil. She held town hall meetings under mango trees and drank palm wine with farmers. She encouraged intermarriage, cross-cultural storytelling, and sent emissaries to every continent to showcase the wealth and wisdom of Katanga. But her greatest legacy was neither gold nor policy. It was a child. She bore a daughter, Nena Elira, a child with her father's dark skin and her mother's bright eyes. Nena, from her cradle, carried both worlds in her blood. As the people of Katanga whispered, "If Elira was the bridge, Nena is the future." By the time Elira grew old, her story had become legend. Folktales were told about the white beggar who came from nowhere, the foreign princess who once sat in the dust and rose to sit on a throne. Songs were composed in her honor. Drums echoed her name. Foreign scholars traveled to Katanga just to study her governance model. And when Elira finally passed, surrounded by her husband, children, and the elders of both Arvenia and Katanga, her body was not buried in a coffin. She was wrapped in both foreign silk and local ankara, and laid to rest beneath the sacred Irako tree, where she had once united 2 kingdoms with a single act of love. On that day, the skies did not weep. The sun rose brighter than ever. Because legends, like stars, do not die. They return to the heavens and guide those who come after. And Elira, the white beggar who became a queen, shone the brightest of them all.